Hello and welcome to this video training about cellulitis and water retention. This is what obviously everybody wants to know, especially in the female population. But also this is the purpose of this video is really actually to make you understand what is the difference between the two and what can we, if anything, that we can do in preventing and treating the problem itself. So, cellulite speaking, obviously, what the question is, what does toning mean? I mean, can we do to tone the body, to make the body better, to make the body less susceptible to this problem? What do we need to do? We need to improve the cellular mass, right? As we saw many times, even in the past, improving the cellular mass, meaning making new lean muscle tissue, new muscle, aka new muscle. And how we do that, obviously, as emphasized in the past, it would be by doing gym. And that's when I say to women that you need to train and work out, I always get this answer, am I not going to become like a bodybuilder? It's very hard for women to put on muscle, but it's very important to do that, not only because obviously for the size or anything, but just to make new muscle tissue so we can improve the cellular mass. What is cellulitis? And let's talk a little bit on the anatomy and where it comes from. So basically, as you can see here, the fibrous band, the muscle and the fat, with obviously the skin, the dermis and the epidermis, undergo changes, sometimes due to the excess water retention, sometimes due to the lack of blood that is obviously that keeps should be coming in one of those areas that doesn't come. So basically what will end up happening in the skin, losing those tissue, the fibrous band loses adherence, and that basically creates those skin wave that you can see. So now obviously we're not going to go into deep into the anatomy and the biology or the physiology about cellulitis. I just want you to have a sense of the difference between the two, between cellulitis, and then we're going to see water retention as well. So what can we do obviously for cellulitis, or how do we see the stages? Unfortunately, obviously, as you see on top, the difference between the skin, usually we have the fibrous, the thin elastin fiber, those little tissue coming down. On the normal skin, they're pretty flexible, while on the cellulitis, they get tense. That's kind of pinched. Like the blood coming from the veins, and the arteries. So basically, we don't have the right circulation going on. That's what creates cellulitis, and obviously it's not about the cellulitis decide to come only on certain bodies, but it's like a lot of events coming together. So obviously we can only when you see on the bottom grade 1, 2, 3, 4, obviously we want to have a sense of how to prevent cellulitis, because it's multifactorial. It's not only depending on obviously genetics, but it comes from many different things. One being, for example, the posture. The other one, the ability to go regularly on the restroom. The other one, you sitting down too much. The other one, obviously, one being genetics. The other one is the hyper spike of insulin. So obviously, getting a diet that is full of sugar or simple sugar, for example. Or also some type of protein and some type of fat. So it's not only about carbohydrates. And of course, since there is so many multifactorial, one being hormonal, obviously, some female tend to be estrogen-based hormone tendency, with a tendency of putting on fat on the legs. So people obviously overweight as well. They tend to have more cellulitis than other. So what we really want to pretty much the take-home message here, since it's multifactorial and it's not only one factor, the question is it too late? Meaning, like, you really want to get it as soon as you can and treat it in the way that we can, because obviously when you get to grade 2, 3, and it would be another grade afterwards, 4, then would be obviously difficult to change the situation. You cannot go back to grade 0 when you are grade 3. I mean, it would really be very difficult, especially if you're not going to take surgery, or if you're not going to do any surgery directly correlated to that. So What can we do? Beside the things that we are already doing. We're gonna go more into depth when we find out about water retention, but mostly is again is multiple things altogether. One thing that has been positive for cellulitis, obviously, is the run, the jumps. So jumping, plyometric movement, run. Also put the legs on the wall, increasing the return of the venous return to the heart, obviously. Another thing that we can do, obviously, is with the nutrition, not hyper spike so much the insulin, so giving less spikes to insulin. We'll see exactly what to eat later on. So basically, we want to understand the difference between cellulitis and water retention. Water retention is blood coming in different compartments. So as you see on top, female is hydrated by 55%, men a little bit more, female 55%. And as you can see there, the intracellular water, it would be 2/3 of the extracellular water. Extracellular water is the water that stays outside, all the water or the fluid that stays outside the cells. Keep in mind that your muscle are the cell that you can see there, the tissue cell. Your muscle are made by many tissue cells. So the water being inside the tissue cells, obviously, for the 2/3, if you can put the 2/3 inside the cells, is beneficial for you not having problem not only with water retention, but as well as with cellulitis as well. Everything else that stay outside the cells is divided in 80% interstitial fluid and 20% blood plasma, right? So now, if the interstitial fluid gets higher, so automatically it would not be 1/3 of obviously of extracellular water, it would be more than 1/3, diminishing what is 2/3 of the intracellular water. So don't get lost if you get confused, but basically you can see it on top. If we make more of those cells, automatically there is going to be less fluid that is going to be outside the cell. That's why it's very important to create new muscle cells, and we're going to see later on how to do that. But basically, the take-home message here is create more cells. If you have a problem with water retention, it's not about not drinking or taking diuretics to lose the water, because basically you're going to lose water, and it's basically going to come mainly from the plasma as well as the other water, but it's not necessarily going to mean that the water is going to stick on the right places of the body. So we want to make sure to get this ratio of 2/3 of intracellular water, 1/3 of extracellular water. If you have the actual view that you see that you have water retention, what do we want to do here? It can mean that you are inflamed, so you want to be obviously maybe take a break from your workout if you work out too much, right? Also, you want to be making sure that we regulate the sodium intake. We'll see afterwards what to do with that. But also, it's really interesting when you're talking about intra and extracellular water, if you can measure the extracellular water. There are devices that is called bioelectrical impedance that you can go with personal trainers at times. I don't know exactly. I know that most places that are really clinical about personal training or medical, they can do a test telling you what is the intracellular extracellular ratio as well as your grade of hydration, because if you are, for example, 45% hydrated, you're already lacking of hydration and you need to hydrate yourself more. So don't confuse cellulitis for water retention. Water retention you see here. Not only you would see some of those things that you saw before on the skin waves, you would have the calf that are actually really bloated, and you would see you can also do the finger test. If you press on your skin for 3-4 seconds, and then when you let it go, it stays wide for about 4 or 5 seconds. Chances are you actually having the problem of extracellular water. So again, to reinforce, and that's how I put together the program the way it is, not to stress anybody, but just to understand that the gym, with so many other positive things that it has, is actually, the most important thing that you can do. Again, you want to have a sense of regulating your workouts. So if you are, already training 5 times a week and you have water retention, chances are maybe you're training too much. If you don't train at all and maybe you eat a bad diet and you eat a lot of sodium with the diet, maybe you need to integrate, obviously the training. You need to regulate your sodium. You need to regulate your carbohydrates intake as well. You can do stuff that you can actually do. It would be jog, and for water retention against cellulitis. Water retention, while cellulitis you actually have a better result sprinting. With the water retention, like a light jog is much better to have your, obviously the venous return to your heart. So basically, for the veins to take all the waste back to the heart. So you don't want to, run in this case. You would just want to jog. Also, exercises that you can, stimulate uh, the plant of the foot. So basically, again, this would stimulate your blood to come back on the heart. So if you create circulation around the legs, this is something that you can do. Another protocol that I like to for people that have a circulation problem is, for example, to in an exercise from another. Let's say you have 2 exercises in the gym. After 2 or 3 exercises, you can have 5 minutes of treadmill or 5 minutes of a bicycle or slight cardio in between 2 or 3 exercises. So an example, you do 2 exercises, you have a light cardio. You do 2 exercises, you have another light cardio. So you can also switch from one upper body exercise to a lower body exercise into a cardio machine. So that would make sure your blood to circulate very often, especially on the legs. So that what would happen, it would actually make the blood waste. We will take away blood waste, and it would go into targeting those problems that we have with the cellulitis itself. What not to do, when it's obviously very important, is not train into hot places and not sit for too long. So that sedentary lifestyle that you already know obviously is reinforced here. You don't want to train into hot places as well for cellulitis. We want to have a sense and respect for the insulin spikes. As I said before, not only the carbohydrates are the problem, some form of dairy, such as some form of yogurt, especially with sugar added, it will spike up your insulin even much because of the sequence of amino acids that are included in some yogurts. So as you can try for yourself, if you have one of those devices to pinch your finger and take the blood, if you try with carbohydrates and then with dairy, some of the dairy, actually most of the dairy, it would give you the same problem as well. So you want to have a sense of what you're supposed to be eating. Protein, you have to include enough protein, not under 0.9 grams times kilograms. So what you want to be including in this case is, if you weigh, let's say 50, 60, 70 kilogram, you want to have at least 70 kilogram of protein. That, as you can see, it can be included in many different ways. Obviously, if you get nuts or the healthy fat options, you want to have a sense of the calories as well, because or the salmon for that matter, and the eggs. I mean, of course, you need to be having a sense of the calorie you put in. The diet itself is supposed to be slightly hypocaloric. When you have cellulitis, that would also help. And of course, by heating speaking about the intra and extracellular water in nature, the processed food, and I put a burger there that could, be also those kind of food that you buy in a box and then you put on a microwave. Those kind of food naturally are rich in salt and are very poor on minerals such as potassium, while in the nature give us obviously potassium and other mineral much higher than what it gives us sodium. So we want to have us obviously consume at least 80 to 85% of this kind of food and 20% of processed food if you really have to at all. Like, obviously it would be better not to, but if you need or if you don't have time, obviously you want to be having a sense of what you're eating. Also, water, you want to make sure that you don't obviously you don't stop drinking, so you must drink. It's not because you have excess water retention that by not drinking is going to actually get worse, because as you saw before, the water tend to shift. So we don't want that, and we want to make sure that we have that covered. So obviously you don't want to drink all at once. As I said previously in some of this video, Water at least 1 liter times 1,000 calories. So if you're gonna eat 2,000 calories for your diet or 1,500 calories, that is at least 1.5 liters to 2 liters. In addition, 0.5 liter for each 100 grams of protein. So if you're consuming 100 grams of protein, it's another 0.5 liter that we need to consume. So obviously, if you are consuming 1.5 liter, you're getting almost to 2 liter. You can also take some obviously natural diuretic, like pineapple is one, asparagus, fennels, cauliflower. Some of them are better than others. So basically, we want to have a sense of what we do with the natural diuretic. If you do have an extra addition of water, of course, like I said before, you want to be measuring the water. That's case number one, because otherwise, just by you thinking that you have an excess water retention, not always is the case.